It's great to be here with all of you, and there's a lot of you here. So if you're sitting in the front, just turn around and look at the people in the back. So it's a full house. So I'm going to share with you a few thoughts, but I want to start by taking a detour. How many of you have heard of the Enlightenment? Show of hands. Okay, good, almost everyone. So Stephen Menendian and I, our next book, which we hope to try to get a lot of progress on this summer, is going to be on the Enlightenment Project. And it was a project. And so I'm not advertising that book yet. We haven't written it yet. But most of us are living our lives in the Enlightenment, in that project. Enlightenment gave us things like a more robust concept of equality, democracy, individualism. It also helped birth other things like science, objectivity. Most of the way we think about the world, our process of thinking, is using the tools of the Enlightenment. And so much so, we forget what was before the Enlightenment. Now, the Enlightenment was not that long ago. So before the Enlightenment was something called magic. So much so that Max Weber said, as a result of the Enlightenment, we had given birth to a disenchanted world, that we had bleached all the magic out of the world. Sounds kind of grim, huh? That's the world we live in. But that's not why I'm telling you that. Why I'm telling you this is that the Enlightenment Project, by most accounts, was given birth by 200 people. 200 people came together over a period of time through various efforts and, not with complete coherency, created something called the Enlightenment Project that for the next 100 plus years, we walk around in unreflectively. There are more than 200 people in this room. So I'm excited about your project. I'm serious. That's my little girl there. She's excited too. What is that project? So, the Reverend Dr. King oftentimes talks about the moral arc of the universe being long but bending toward justice. Some of you may know I talk about that same arc, but I said it can bend toward justice, but it really bends toward belonging if we bend it. So the two editorial license I take with King's statement is one, belonging, and two, it doesn't bend automatically. It's something that we have to do. And that sometimes there are other people who are bending it in a different direction, away from justice, away from belonging. I think we're in one of those periods right now. But again, when that's happening, and we're in a funny time. I just came back from DC last night. And I was there in part to bring together Republicans and Democrats over dinner. And that's something I've been doing for the last few years. And it was, I must say, and I won't say much about it, I'm not supposed to. For the most part, they don't even want people to know they're meeting. It was weird. So we're in strange times. And in these times, it's easy to get depressed. It's easy to feel powerless. It's easy to feel like it's over. It's easy to feel like we lost. It's easy to feel like, what's the point? Is my passport up to date? Where are you going to go? these problems are global problems. And part of the reason we're having these problems is the things that's been holding us together, the glue that's been holding us together, is not working. I talk about in the book about why is this happening, not just in the United States, but in Canada, in South Africa, in Brazil, in Hungary, in Asia. It's happening every place at the same time. That doesn't happen very often. I mean, it did with the pandemic, but aside from that, usually things happen in localities and they're quite distinct. And yet something seems to be happening all over the world at the same time. And what it seems to be happening is a disintegration of our civility, our ability to actually recognize our shared humanity. Our structures that were holding us are all under attack. So what's going on? Why is this happening? And some of us might think, well, it's Donald Trump. I know this is not a political talk, but nonetheless, there it is. But I want to suggest to you, while Trump has played a critical role, that's not an adequate explanation. That doesn't explain what's happening in South Africa. Well, I see my friend Alyosha sitting down in front. He knows where we live, there are too many Teslas on the block. And we're trying to figure out how to get rid of them. Actually, Tesla is not the problem. It's the owner of Tesla company that's the problem. But if it's not just... You know what's that? Someone's take another detour. Just follow me for a minute. Think about, right now, stuff like diversity is being questioned, inclusiveness is being questioned, equality is being questioned. The enlightenment process is being questioned, not because people want to go back to magic, but because they want to go back to dominance. And so it's just like, when we think about the stories that we live in, one of the stories is that we got to make America great again. We got to make India great again. That's actually what Modi says. We got to make India great again. We got to make Russia great again. And then somebody had the clarity to say to Modi, remind us, when was India great? He had an answer. Remember when India used to be astronauts and we traveled between the stars? This is not an exaggeration. That was part of his answer. Thousands of years ago, we had machines that would take us between the stars. So, I don't remember that. And when they asked Putin, tell us, when was Russia great again? He said, it's right there in our history. We called her Catherine the Great. We were great when Catherine was great. Okay, I missed that one too. What people are doing in this, Trump, let's make America great again. Some researchers asked people, remind us, when was America great? And most of them had a time frame somewhere between 1850 and 1950. So I'm thinking, 1850? My folks weren't doing so well in 1850. A lot of our folks were not doing well in 1850, even in 1950. So the notion of we were great when we were small, when we were pure, when there was no other part of our society, when we were ethically, racially, religiously homogeneous. And what we're afraid of now is this impurity that diversity reflects. And so you have this kind of deep ethnic nationalism that's running rampant. And everybody's playing it. It's not just white people, it's Indians, it's Africans. It's like we're afraid of the other. And what is our fear of the other? Who is the other? The other is a fiction, but it's a powerful fiction. And being afraid of the other, as this might already being suggested, is not rational. It's not rational to think that 1,000 years ago, Indians were traveling between the stars. That's not rational. Modi's not stupid. He's a lot of things, but he's not stupid. Why would he tell the Indian people that, and why would they believe him? Because he's telling them that because they're afraid. And what are they afraid of? What are they afraid of? What are we afraid of? What are the South Africans afraid of? Why are we all experiencing this deep fear right now? And the answer is largely we, and not just humans, but certainly humans, can only process so much change in a short period of time without experiencing stress, without experiencing anxiety. There's a saying, if you change your job, change where you live, and change your primary relationship, and that's assuming that your change is to somebody you like, your chances of having a heart attack goes up 50%. That just those changes in a 2-year period puts the body under tremendous stress. And what's happening right now is the world is speeding up along multiple indicators. So, there's a swagger to Elon Musk. He's the new John Wayne. I'm going to Mars. Sorry, you guys can't go. But listen to what he really is saying. When they talk to him about AI, which he's one of the progenitors of, he tells you, I'm afraid. There's a future coming that I can't control. I'm afraid. And so what we're experiencing is collective fear because the world is speeding up. Technology, pandemics, climate change, demographics. How do we make sense of it? And I'm going to just give you a few hints and then suggest you buy the book. Part of the way we make meaning of it is just that meaning. We're not factual animals. Psychologist says we're optimal animals. We need enough to get by. And when things come along that we don't understand, we don't become researchers. What we do is tell stories. And those stories give meaning, collective meaning. And so those stories is what we organize our lives around. And in telling those stories, we're not talking to the prefrontal cortex, which is another way of saying the rational mind. We're talking to the old mind. We're talking to the reptile. And the reptile is organized around anxiety and fear. So when we're in a society that's deeply engaged in fear and fragmentation, the person that runs to the top of the class is the person who can talk to the reptile. And I teach at Berkeley, and these students at Berkeley are just sharp as a tack. But they don't know how to talk to the reptile. They've been trained to talk to the prefrontal cortex. And when we see people like Trump and Vance talk about eating people's babies or killing people's cats, and we go to the front of the prefrontal cortex and say, that's just stupid. But we're missing the point. They're talking to the prefrontal, to the lizard brain, which is called the amygdala. So what I'm suggesting is that the world will continue to speed up and there will be more and more anxiety until we come up with a story a better story that quiets the amygdala. And what's the story that quiets the amygdala? Well, it depends on what's frightening the amygdala. I'm walking down the savannah 10,000 years ago, and I see a stick. It's like, oh, wait, I said a stick. No, I thought it was a stick. It was a snake. I'm not here, you folks, because I didn't survive, and my offsprings never happened. I made a mistake. So fear acts faster than rationality. Those who are, that could be a snake. It could be a stick. Let me touch it and see. Okay, it was a snake. I made a mistake. Where fear is like, right away. It doesn't go through the same process. It's much faster. And so we have to learn to quiet the fear. What are we afraid of? What are we afraid of? The ultimate thing we're afraid of is not belonging. That we won't belong. That the future is coming and we won't have a place in that future. And it's not subtle. You don't have to do much digging. When the Proud Boys are marching, they're chanting, "The Jews will not replace us." Now, we also know that's a Nazi term from the 1930s, but it's also telling you, I'm afraid of being replaced by the other. And that's a scary thought. I'll go to war rather than be replaced by the other. It doesn't matter that it's not true. They're telling you this is what the amygdala is organized around. So what I've tried to do in the book, The Power of Bridging, is to sort of lay that out, but then to say, first of all, the other is a fiction, but it's a powerful fiction. We don't address that fiction by saying it's a fiction. We address it by bridging, by being willing to see the other. And not seeing them with the prefrontal cortex, which looks for all the faults, looks for all the defects, looks for all the... you said something, Jason, but what you said about the date was wrong. It was actually not March 25th, it was March 28th. That's the prefrontal cortex. It's slicing and dicing. It's distinguishing. And it feels good to be right and for somebody else to be wrong. That's the rational mind. What we need to see them is through the heart. We need to feel them. So the rational mind wants to be right. That's not bridging. The heart wants to be in relationship. So I don't care what the date is. How do you feel? What are you afraid of? What are your aspirations? So I'm going to end and invite Julia out but think about this. It's an experiment in terms of the other. When we see the other in a deep way, we don't see the person as human. There's a part of the brain that lights up when you see another human being. When you see someone as deeply other, that part of the brain does not light up. In fact, in many cases, the part of the brain that lights up is disgust. And when you break with someone, the other becomes a threat. They're trying to replace me. So how do you actually address that? You talk to the amygdala. And we come up with a better story. It's not a story about me or a story about you. It's a story about us. And that famous Jamaican philosopher, Bob Marley, said it well. He said, every person thinks his burden is the heaviest. Every person thinks his burden is the heaviest. So we all know the story about myself, but I don't know your story. And so are we willing to really listen to each other's story and come together and co-create a story together that's a story about not just Black people, white people, straight people, Jews, Palestinians, but a story about us, about all of us. And it's through bridging and listening through the heart that we start to build that story. And that's what the book is about. Thank you.